Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World Daily with me, John Jordan. So this is an article that's been going around. I'm actually a little bit late on it. It's a couple of weeks old now, but it's a question actually I've been asked quite a few times by people. So I think it's worth sort of going into in some depth. So it's all about, is AXIE Infinity, can it sustain itself? Is it a pyramid scheme? And the author actually goes into quite a bit of detail about how the economy of AXIE Infinity works. I don't think I don't agree with his conclusions, but I think it's sort of worth kind of working through it in a bit of detail. I'll put the link in so you can read the whole article. So AXIE Infinity, is play to earn the new paradigm or just another pyramid scheme? So to begin with, what is a pyramid scheme? There's different terms of pyramid scheme, Ponzi scheme, multi-level marketing schemes. But the idea behind them is that they are obviously all illegal. That they are, I would say, they're all set up to be basically scams. So, a pyramid scheme or a Ponzi scheme is basically set up in the way that it will entice people to put money into a project with the promise they will get more money back again. And that is actually how it works in the short term, because basically what you're doing is you're saying to people, put in $1,000 and you'll get $5,000 back. And that works in terms of the first round of people are paid off by the second round of people coming in, then the third round pay the second round, and basically you end up with this pyramid. That's what I call a pyramid scheme. And clearly at some point you end up with not enough money coming in to pay the most recent round of people who've come in, and then the whole thing collapses, and it sort of becomes clear. And obviously the people who set it up are sort of skimming a bit of everything that comes in. It's set up to be a illegal enterprise. It's set up to at some point fail. And the organisers of those sort of pyramid schemes, know what's going to happen, and they make sure they are not in the way when the thing blows up. And the other sort of problem with pyramid schemes is they do work in the short term. So if someone puts in $1,000 and gets $5,000 back, they're in general, if you had that sort of investment, you'd be telling all your friends and family, "Oh, I just made $4,000." So really easy, give money to these guys. And that's the sort of perniciousness about a pyramid scheme, is the sense that the people who are last in are normally the people who are sort of least able to lose money. They probably scrape together money because they're desperate to profit in some way. And often the sort of bitterness also comes about because the people who have told them to put the money in are their friends and family, and those people may have actually made money. Because the pyramid scheme works until the point at which it doesn't work. So, is it clearly from that point of view, is AXIE Infinity a pyramid scheme in that sort of sense, in that legal sense? No, clearly it's not. So I know the people behind AXIE Infinity, they've been working at this for a long time. That they are not looking to make money from an illegal kind of situation where they are creaming off money coming in, and that money is required for people to get paid out again. So from that sort of answer, from that sort of question, is AXIE Infinity a pyramid scheme? No, clearly it's not, and it's sort of slightly ridiculous that you would even suggest that. I think the deeper question here is, can AXIE Infinity sustain itself, and more generally, can blockchain games sustain themselves? Because it's clearly the case that there is an element, and in fact, not just of blockchain, but any financial sort of situation, they do have elements of sort of pyramid schemes in there, in the sense that they do need to grow, and to a degree, the financial outcomes that people sort of get is sort of dependent on the level of growth. So we can think of something like sort of Apple computers. If you bought Apple stock back in the day, was that a pyramid scheme? No, clearly it wasn't. They were trying to make computers. But as more people told people that Apple computers were great, then obviously Apple revenue went up and the price of the Apple stock went up. So there's sort of interesting stuff sort of going on there in a similar sort of thing. Although, so I'm just saying that there are ways in which virality, if you do have a financial system inbuilt to that, which most things don't, but everything in blockchain does, clearly there are aspects of sort of pyramid schemes around that. But that's not to say these things are pyramid schemes. Okay, so let's actually have a look at sort of the more interesting question, I think, of sustainability. So what's going on here? So in terms of play to earn, you earn the Smooth Love Potion in the game for winning battles, and that's a cryptocurrency. So this is actually created when people win battles. You can sell it on crypto exchanges for Bitcoin or cash or anything, or say you sell it. You probably would sell it for Bitcoin and then cash it out to your fiat currency. And these tokens are also destroyed when other people or the same people use them to breed axes. So You have this what we call a utility token, the Smooth Love Potion. It's created when people play the game by winning battles and fulfilling tasks actually as well. But it's required by people who want to breed axes to create new axes, and it's destroyed then. So it's not it doesn't have a total supply. It's sort of, I guess it can be inflationary or deflationary depending on the activity going on around it. In general, people will assume it's going to be inflationary because over time more people are going to be playing the game. The increasing growth is more people playing the game, and probably a smaller percentage of those actually breeding. So that's sort of the thinking. Although obviously as we've seen and as is discussed in this article, the amount of SLP you can win in the game has changed over time. They've reduced that, and they could also sort of increase the amount of SLP required to breed as well if they wanted to. So these things currently are not decentralized at all. So interesting question: where does the money that allows scholars grinding SLP to convert these tokens into cash? The answer is new players. So this actually I think is incorrect. So if we think about, if I'm a scholar, so a scholar is just someone who doesn't own any AXIE NFTs and is borrowing them from someone else to earn money. So this is particularly the model we see in places like the Philippines, India, Indonesia, Brazil, some of these places where people are playing AXIE Infinity to earn some or all of their salary. So I'm playing the game and I'm getting my SLP, and that's sort of limited in how much you can get a day. So I get that. And then I go to an exchange. Binance is the big one, but obviously other ones are around as well. And I basically have my SLP and I sell it for another cryptocurrency, or sell it for sort of Tether, and then sell that out for cash to get my bank account. So I'm selling there. So obviously other people are buying. So there's people on the other side of that trade who are buying. So unless you're doing it into a Uniswap and you're doing it into a liquidity pool. But the people who are buying SLP is not new players. So the people who are buying it are people who are speculating into SLP, who they think SLP as a token is going to go up in value. That's any cryptocurrency kind of trade would be the case. Someone's selling because they want to get out, and someone's buying because they want to get in. If you're there could be other people. So I'm actually one of these. So I actually have liquidity in the Uniswap liquidity pool for SLP, and I'm doing it because I like AXIE Infinity, and I've had liquidity in that pool for a couple of years now. I'm not a new player. People who are trading are not new players, and in fact, new players are the people who are least likely to be buying SLP, because SLP is useful if you want to breed axes. And new players are not breeding axes. In most cases, most of the new players are scholars, so they don't even own axes, so they can't breed them. Now, we do have to also point out that there are different ways of playing blockchain games, and there are different sort of types of players. So there's some who are just playing the game, in this case AXIE Infinity, to get SLP, to earn money. There are some people who are breeding axes. So what they do is they're thinking very carefully about the DNA traits and what they're trying to breed out and get a certain type of AXIE. And then there are people who are just speculators, who are buying either the tokens or buying the NFTs, and they're not playing the game at all. They're just holding them because they think AXIE Infinity is a great project, or just they don't care about it. They don't think it's a great project. They think it's one that's going to make them money. So there's those kind of individual players, and obviously any one of those people might be doing multiple sort of things there. So it's quite a mixture. But new players are not buying SLP. The SLP thing is much more limited. Is much more sort of focused on the whole sort of ecosystem. So that's sort of incorrect. So he makes his argument from a fund standpoint. Earning in the game is entirely dependent on fresh dollars flowing in to play existing players. That is not the case. Now, there is a sort of a more subtle point that obviously if AXIE Infinity isn't growing, then people on Binance are not going to want to buy SLP. So there is an indirect link there to new players and whether people want to buy SLP. But SLP, as we've sort of seen as a token, the price has actually gone down a bit. It's sort of volatile up and down, whereas the AXS token, the governance token, that's just gone up. So people have sort of most people have understood the SLP token, is a utility token. It's bought, it's created, and it's burnt as the game sort of works, or the ecosystem works. But the governance token is the one you want to have because you can stake that. You can have potentially governance in the game, although clearly not live yet. So this is completely wrong. This is the point at which indirectly more players coming in the game will basically make the assets of that game more valuable. So the people who already own those assets are going to sort of do better out of it. But this is not the game is in no way designed even to really use elements of pyramid scheme, because that's just not how. When you have a sort of a two token economy, which AXIE Infinity does, and a lot of blockchain games now do have, Obviously, it depends exactly on the game in total. But there's just no point. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work in the same way as a pyramid scheme where you just have one. You are literally drawing money in and paying that out to new people. That's just not the case at all. Totally wrong. So there's then an interesting sort of situation here where the guy goes through and looks at how much money you can make from AXIE Infinity, and that is interesting. So basically, he's saying here, if you invested a certain amount of money, what return could you get? So he's saying at one point you could the minimum buying price in order to get the AXIEs surged from about $100 to $1,300, about $600 today, and he's talking about the DLUs going up. Yields have gone down. Yields is sort of the money you get out of it in the process. And as he points out, AXIE has sort of cut the rewards, so you get less SLP now. So it's not so it's sort of, and it's actually funny that he's suggested this is because they think it's a pyramid scheme and they're worried that it's sort of going to blow up. Whereas actually clearly the case is they are worried that the economy is overheating, as sort of the Fed in America, or the Bank of England or the Bank of EU Bank, whatever. Banks are always worried about economies overheating. So this is just, we'll see this in blockchain games. This is not because it's a pyramid scheme. This is just because it's seeing incredible growth, and you need to sort of rebalance incentives in that sort of situation. And obviously, you would think that if this was a terrible thing and it was highlighting the fact this was a pyramid scheme, people would stop playing, but clearly they're not. So I'll probably keep saying it again, AXIE Infinity is clearly not a pyramid scheme. It is an economy that is being sort of tweaked, and at the moment they can tweak that in a centralized manner, and they are tweaking it because it's growing so fast. And clearly, the more people playing a blockchain game, or any sort of game, but any game with an economic model or any blockchain sort of project, then clearly the assets within that project are going to get more valuable. But while that has sort of some aspects of a pyramid scheme, that is not a pyramid scheme. And in fact, something with AXIE Infinity is not designed even to sort of take advantage of sort of pyramid scheme type models. If they thought about that, then they would have a very different product. So this is sort of interesting, but irrelevant. So he's kind of looking at what's happened in terms of the price of AXIEs, and how much you can earn by breeding stuff in, and how much SLP you could earn. So you get 200% a month, whereas now it's sort of break even. Now this is sort of, again, interesting, because this is how, when you build a game with a blockchain, you're going to have these economic models in there, and at certain points things are going to be like really profitable, and you're going to attract money that isn't really so bothered about your game, but there's just lots of money floating around in crypto, and that money is kind of looking for yield, and they might look at that in DeFi. They might look to invest in NFTs. And they're just looking for, like, I've got $1,000, $10,000, $100,000, $1 million. How can I make that bigger? And they don't really care what they're doing. They don't want to jump through too many hoops generally, so they like buying NFTs at the moment. But basically, if you can get 100% in a week, I can turn my $1 million into $2 million. Right, I'm straight in. So, but obviously, what happens over time is as more money comes piling in, then the return sort of drops off, because more money is sort of chasing that return. And normally, on the other side of the equation, more money can come into a system, then that system can sort of profitably kind of exchange back out again. So what happens is, and it's a purely natural thing in sort of any economic system, is money sort of comes piling in. We can think about the housing market. You can make lots of money by buying a house and renting it out, but if everyone starts buying houses and the price of houses goes up, the rental price can't go up as fast as new money can come into the market. So eventually, if it sort of becomes less profitable and people go, well, I'm not going to buy a house to rent it out because it's not profitable anymore. This is exactly what we're seeing here. So it's kind of interesting to go. He's gone through the maths. It's sort of funny that he's sort of in some way sort of complaining that the game's growth has sort of destroyed the economy. And it's like, well, yeah, that's what happens in sort of any economic model. These things are always in dynamic readjustment. They're always trying to find equilibrium. That's sort of what the fundamentals of supply and demand tell us. This now is sort of getting a bit further away from the argument, because I kind of think his argument is sort of fatally flawed. I think for me, this sort of essay, the guy's clearly smart, but he has come in at it from the point of view that he thinks AXIE Infinity, even if it's not sort of a sort of pyramid scheme in the classic sense, it basically is a pyramid scheme on the blockchain. Even if it's not, it wouldn't be found as an illegal pyramid scheme if it was kind of in court. You know, he basically thinks morally to a degree or economically it is a pyramid scheme. So he's just going to kind of go down that argument. I've sort of said this argument is sort of wrong. But there is a sort of other interesting sort of thing and it's sort of more general, you know, how big can these games go? So at the moment, AXIE Infinity is about 1.5 million DAUs. You know, the biggest mobile game is Arena of Valor, but it's not. Honor of Kings from Tencent does 100 million DAUs. It's a mobile game. So we can see AXIE Infinity could sort of grow another 50 times. Probably won't, but you know, there's definitely growth in that system. And you could argue, some people would argue, AXIE Infinity could be the biggest game ever in terms of users, because you can make money from it. So I think there's plenty of growth there, and I think with most blockchain games, you know, we're not at the level yet where we have to worry about growth being the problem. But even when growth sort of is a problem in terms of getting new users in, I kind of think something like you know, AXIE Infinity, you know, has all these NFTs out there. People could build games around those NFTs. I think we're already starting to see people talk about that. You know, Ronin as a blockchain, you know, people are going to start talking about, let's launch games on the Ronin blockchain. So that's sort of not new people coming to AXIE Infinity, but new people coming to that blockchain and that ecosystem. And then you also have to think about things like, you know, when games get sort of very mature, you start having things like advertising in there. So suddenly you've got advertising money flowing in. Maybe Nike wants to create, maybe Nike's not a great example, but I don't know. You know, we see all these sort of things, advertisers sort of come into systems, and that sort of new money coming in. So it doesn't always have to be new players. And even in the case, I think when you know, these games do end up in a sort of sustainable level and the token price isn't bombing up all the time, I think that's maybe a few years off yet. I think you'll kind of see it with all crypto. You know, the price of Bitcoin at some point will sort of stabilize, potentially at least. So I think, you know, we're so early in the blockchain game space. Is it important to think about sustainability in terms of the economic side of things? I think it's important to consider it, but do I think it's going to be a big problem for lots of the big games? You know, I just don't see that being the case at the moment. I think it's something that people who have slightly negative views about blockchain or don't really know blockchain terribly well, it's a question that they raise, and it's not a bad question to raise, but I think, you know, in a sense that it shows a degree of sort of negativity. So we'll see. Is there anything going on here? I mean, he does make some interesting sort of discussions here about the decentralized game of the governance token, but yeah, I mean, it's absolutely the case that the AXS token for AXIE Infinity is not working as a governance token. They've laid down a plan of how it's going to become a governance token, how you're going to do staking. They're behind on that because the game has been so successful. They're a tiny team. You know, you either believe. You sort of, it's to some degree, is a good faith sort of argument. You either believe the AXIE Infinity team are doing the best they can in difficult circumstances, or you think everything that hasn't happened is because they're a bunch of scammers who are trying to steal all your money. So, you know, I guess that's kind of what it boils down to. What's going on here about the Treasury? So the Treasury's got $1 billion, that's sort of massive. And that's why the AXS token is going up in value, because people see it has this massive sort of treasury, and obviously as the price of the AXS token goes up, then the price of treasury goes up, because a lot of the treasury is built up on the AXS token. So it's a slightly sort of circular thing, as lots of things in blockchain tend to be. I wouldn't get too worried about how big the treasury is, apart from the fact that it has a sort of treasury. This is an interesting sort of one, I suppose. So what's happening is you need to spend the AXS token in order to breed as well. So what you're seeing is what he calls drainage. So the amount of value on the exchanges is dropping because the AXS token is getting put into the treasury. So obviously, again, that works as a flywheel, driving up the price because there's less AXS token in the marketplace. So you get a sort of secondary sort of situation where the price is going up because there's less of it around. Again, supply and demand. And it's going into the treasury, and we don't really know what's going on the treasury. The treasury will at some point, I think, you'll stake your token and you'll get some more back. So we will start to see outflows from the treasury. It's a temporary thing. The fact is, at the moment, that the treasury isn't sort of up and running yet. So there we go. And then he starts to a way of how can we fix this? Clearly, there's ways of fixing things. Okay, so sort of let's look at the last paragraph. It's always sort of good to see sort of summing up sort of things. So I do believe that a minimum there needs to be some sort of regulation with respect to exchanges that are playing the role of liquidity providers. So obviously there is regulation around kind of people like Binance, a lot of that kind of now. There are lots of games cutting pasting from the AXIE playbook, yeah. and now you've sold a few rare game NFTs for huge sums despite minimal to non-existent DAUs. Well, that's clearly not the case in AXIE because it's got loads of DAUs and it sold these NFTs. Hope that this triggers token interest, which then creates yield, attracts farmers, blah blah. So this is sort of a case. This is a case for some blockchain games, I think, that people are sort of pumping in a very different way. Crypto Blades would be like one example. I would think a game that sort of blew up and blew down again. So I think there is definitely a secondary argument that people will use the AXIE playbook either in a sort of a more scammy way or they're less professional teams who can deal with this sort of stuff. Clearly that's going to happen, but that's not around games per se. That's around NFTs and crypto in general. Plenty of people have been done for being scams in crypto. The Yield Gaming Guild. He basically doesn't understand this at all. I'm not going to go into this video's long enough. I'm not going to go into all the details of Yield Guild. No people behind it. It's very altruistic. They are really I personally think it's a great thing they're doing, and they're sort of piggybacking on the success of AXIE, and they've created more success with AXIE. At this point, this guy needs to write an article about Yield Guild and actually understand it and talk to some people there. So there we go. The Oliver Twist Gaming Guild. I don't really understand what that means. But in some ways, Oliver Twist and Oliver Twist Gaming Guild would be great because Oliver Twist was a poor orphan in Dickens' book who wanted some more food. So if we can build situations where we can give poor starving people some more food, I for one do not see the problem. I don't know why everyone puts apostrophes with NFTs. It's kind of weird. Anyway, NFTs are fun creation. Yes, they are super powerful, valuable tool for genuine artists. He's sort of suggesting here AXIE Infinity aren't genuine artists. The minute you turn them into high yield certificates of deposit, they are no longer cute body blahs. They are financial instruments and be treated as such. Well, yes and no. I mean, again, this is sort of, I don't want to say stupid, but this is sort of, I think people have to sort of get with the program. This is what blockchain gives us. Everything on a blockchain is a financial instrument to some degree. It may not be designed as such, but it inherently is a financial instrument because it has financial value, and then people will build kind of usage models around that. It may not even be the developer of the token. So I kind of think this is sort of tilting at Wimwells a little bit. He set up a straw man to like bash him down, but the more you look into this, I kind of think there is some level of misunderstanding around blockchain games, some level of sort of malice around what they're doing. And it's done some good research into the numbers, but equally, there's some level of basically misunderstanding about how economic systems work. So I think it's a good question to ask. I don't know who whoever it is, Akram's Razor. I don't know who the guy who writes it is. I'm sure he's a smart guy. I just fundamentally disagree with him. I think it's good to raise these sort of articles, and I think there will be definite games where you could do this sort of analysis, and it would be these things are much closer to a pyramid scheme, and they have been designed as such. I think sort of AXIE Infinity is the one that gets it because of the headlines, but AXIE Infinity is sort of the purest in this sense. Which again is not to say that AXIE Infinity is going to succeed necessarily. I think it clearly has the best chance. I think it has probably the best team and it has the most funding now. But things can go wrong. We've seen this in blockchain many times. There's no reason that these things are, however decentralized the sort of decision making is, these things are open platforms and money can flow in and out, and obviously kind of a bunch of stuff can happen. So this is not clearly investment advice into AXIE Infinity, as much as I love it. But hopefully an interesting sort of maybe slightly rambling discussion on this topic. And I think it is, while this is focused on AXIE Infinity, this is a discussion we're going to come back to many, many times for blockchain games. So anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel and see you again soon.